Hey, what's up everybody? My name is Chris, aka Ghost of Barber. Thank you for coming to men's cutting class today. I'm so happy that you guys are here. Let's go ahead and get started. Everybody go ahead and take out their phones. We're going to look up Instagram, Google, Pinterest. Let's look up some of our favorite haircuts trends right now. Go ahead and take a minute to do so. Alright, cool. What did you guys get?
Hard part and a comb over.
Hard part and a comb over. Awesome. Anybody else?
Faux hawk.
Faux hawk. Cool. One more.
Bald fade.
Bald fade. Awesome. That's actually my favorite haircut. And through today's class, we're going to go ahead and discover growing trends in haircutting and each individual person's lifestyles and needs for it. Also, we're going to work on your blending skills. My personal testimony about this is that when I was in school, this haircut used to give me so much trouble because I used to be so nervous about making sure every line was blended out, how clean and precise this haircut needs, and sometimes the clients can be a little bit tricky. All right, so let's get started. Today we're going to go over the consultation, our haircut, which is the bald fade, shampoo and condition, and the style and finish. But before that, let's go ahead and review our 10 opportunities. Can somebody tell me our first opportunity?
Create magic.
Create magic. This is where we're going to go ahead and set the tone. We're going to do it with a smile on our face, and we're actually going to bring the client back to the chair nice and comfortable. Number 2, we're going to identify any challenges that they may have. Hair texture, skin needs, calyx whorls. Number 3, we're going to recommend solutions. We actually already identified the challenges, so as we go into recommending solutions, this is where we come up with product, style change, anything along those lines. Number 4, wash house. Who doesn't love the T3 experience? I know I do. We're going to get into that a little bit later. Number 5, educate your guest. This is where we're going to go ahead and educate our guest, your client, on the experiences that we may or may not have that are coming up, the challenges, the products, everything like that. Different hairstyles. Number 6, we're going to talk professionally. It's super important that we make it about the client and not about ourselves. Now we can get personal, so we can identify maybe with the client and have that personal relationship that we create, but we want to keep it simple. We don't want to go into detail about how bad our lives are or any sort of drama. We want them to come back. Number 7, recommend color bar and other services. Now, a lot of our guests, especially men, don't understand that we have other services or other experiences that we can offer to them. You know, talk to them a little bit about, have you ever thought about coloring your hair? Maybe you need a tint on your beard, certain things like that. Our style experience. Can anybody tell me about our style experience?
This is where we could maybe educate our guests on how to recreate the same style that we created.
Awesome. A lot of times our guests, they love the way they look. They love the way they feel. As they leave and go out into, go home into the office space, sometimes the next day they can't recreate this. This is where we get to explain to them how we're going to do that and how they're going to do that. Number 9, anybody tell me about what it means to review and recommend?
Review what maybe you taught them throughout the service.
All right, we're going to go throughout the whole service, everything that we did, what we taught them about their hair, their style, their skin needs, products, stuff like that. We're going to actually pull the products and tell them, hey, this is what we used, this is what I like to use, this actually may help you. All that recommendation, which actually leads us into the 2-minute plan. So we're going to go ahead and go over the 2-minute plan a little bit later. All right, the consultation. This is where we're going to get together, just you and the guest, and you're going to find out how much information you possibly can about them. This is where I like to go into their skin needs, their hair texture, what products they use, and also I like to ask for a picture so that we know we have a clear understanding what we're going to do to their hair. We're going to fill out our guest service profile, which is where we're going to documentate that. And we're also going to move on to our take-home recommendation form, and then that leads us into what?
Finding our learning leader.
Finding our learning leader. Okay, cool. What's that called?
Mini powwow.
Mini powwow. All right, which leads us into the 4-step program. This is my guarantee, this is my responsibility, this is my promise to you. First thing we're going to do is our mini powwow. We're going to do this away from the guests. It's just going to be you and I, a little bit intimate setting, so that way we understand and we're on the same page as to what's going to happen. Now, if you need to cry, kick, or scream, we could do this right here. I'm going to wipe your tears, and then we're going to move on. Okay? We're going to go to our service consultation. This right here, we're going to meet back with the client, just the 3 of us. We're going to all get on the same page, so that way we make sure that we knock it out of the park. Okay? Service check. I'm not going to let you drown. I'm going to make my rounds. I'm going to make sure you, the guest, are having a great experience. You're doing well doing your cut. They're having a good experience with you. We're going to move on to the service completion. Okay? Service completion. Upon the completion of the haircut, you're going to come find me again. Then we're going to go ahead and make sure that we hit that home run. The guest loves it. You love it. Everybody's happy. All right, leading us into the 2-minute plan. We're going to wait to clean our service area. Obviously, we don't want to keep the client waiting. We want to make sure that we escort them up to the front and introduce them to the service team. Now, as we do that, along the way, what I like to do is I like to pull the product that I used on them today and set them in front of them and explain to them that this is what I did use on you, and this is how we can help recreate that style that we have today. We're going to reserve a time for their next experience, so we're going to set a date for their next service, right? As we do that, we're going to give them a business card for them that has the time and the date for the next experience, plus 5 business cards, and we're going to ask for those referrals, right? Then we say thank you with a smile and a handshake, and then we're going to go back to our service area, and that's when we clean everything up and get things ready for the next client. One thing I love about Paul Mitchell Cutting Systems is that we always have a plan of attack. The plan is what we use to determine the contour, the shape, and the tools that we need to achieve the final results. Number 1, we evaluate. During the evaluation process, we determine if they have a calic, any whorls, head shape, bone structure, muscles, scars, anything like that that may deter us from the end result. Number 2, we're going to divide the head into 3 segments. Everybody go ahead and get your skill cards out and turn to page 42. All right, so I got right here, page 42. Can anybody tell me the first segment?
It starts above the ear, and then it looks like it dips down below the occipital, and then comes back around to the other ear.
Awesome. Segment number 2. It's going to live right at the recession line. It's going to dip down below the crown and back around to the other side. And number 3, super simple. It's what's left on top of the head. All right, give me just a second here. All right, number 3. We're going to determine which contour to use. Do you remember in core the 3 shapes that we learned for the head?
1, 2, and 3.
That's right, 1, 2, and 3. Super simple, right? But do we remember the contours that we're going to use to match?
Building, leaning, and natural.
That's right, building, leaning, and natural. Sometimes in this we're going to have to use a combination of 2. We're also going to have to know the bone structures and muscle structures in order to achieve the final results. Number 4, determine tool use. So today I got a couple of examples of the tools that we're going to be using for this haircut. I have a standard clipper with an adjustable lever. I have my trimmer. This is for removing fine hair and detail work. I have my standard 308 comb. This is for sectioning, scissor over comb. Okay, and for a clipper over comb, I have a black clipper comb for light hair so we can see our sectioning, and white comb for dark hair for the same sectioning. Awesome. So we're going to start off with our shears as well. We have a 5-inch shear for detail work. We have a 6-inch shear, which is going to be your workhorse. This is going to remove your bulk. And I have a 7-inch shear, which is great for scissor over comb work. To top it all off, we have our 40 tooth texturizing shear. This is going to help remove weight, blend those nice soft lines, and eliminate any shadows that we have. Alright, so now I got a special treat for you guys. I got a demo that I did on a live model for you. Alright guys, we're here today with Shay. He's going to be my live model. We've already done the consultation. We've established that we're going to do a low medium bald fade. We're going to add some texture to the top. And we're just going to go over how to go ahead and proceed with the haircut. First off, we're going to do a tool check. We're going to make sure that we have everything that we need. We have our clipper combs for blending, clipper comb. We have our standard 308 combs. We have our texturizers, our shears, and we have our trimmers and our clippers. We use water bottles, or we can use the outpouring moisture mist, so that way we can maintain and manage the hair. So you have to forgive me, my voice is still a little hoarse because I'm just getting over being sick, but I'm going to go ahead and demo this cut. First thing we're going to do is we're going to start off on the dominant side. So for me, that's going to be my right hand side. I'm going to we've already pre-established during the consultation that we are going to go to mid-level, which is about where the temporal region is. We're going to do a slight drop down to the occipital. We're going to create a line of demarcation, and then we're going to be able to blend that out. So I'm going to go ahead and start with our trimmers. I'm going to start at the sideburn area. I'm going to create my guide, which is a little bit below the temporal region. And I'm going to go ahead and remove most of the bulk this way. And I'm going to work around to the back side, from the front to center back. Now as I do this, I'm going to want to make sure that I go slow but steady, so that way I don't create any uncomfortable, pulling, tugging, any sort of the hair out of place, or maybe the client's hair is thicker, so that way we don't create any uncomfortable situations for them. So always be careful when you're using your trimmers. One, you want to go slow enough to be able to cut through the hair. If you go too fast, you have a tendency of pulling it. Also, you want to make sure that your trimmers are on point, because a lot of people have a hard time when they're going through. They may be tight enough to where it can irritate the skin as well. So I've created my line where my guide is. Now I'm going to go back to the other side, my less dominant side. I'm going to meet from front to center back as well, so that way I can make sure it's an even guideline. Again, I'm going to start in the temporal region, and I'm going to create the same shape, meeting center back, removing bulk. Slow and steady, I'm coming up at a 90 degree and rocking out at a 45 to preserve that length for the blend. Alright, so I've established my guideline throughout the entire head. I made sure that it's even by checking in the mirror. I'm also going to go ahead and use my clippers. I'm going to use the Andis Masters. I'm going to use a 1 guard closed. In order to remove the bulk line up, I'm going to rock at a 90-degree angle up, rocking out at 45 to preserve that length, so that gives us time and space to blend into the top in section 3, right below the parietal. Now as I do this, I'm actually coming off the head at a 45 degree that creates and maintains balance and weight towards the parietal ridge, and this is the section where I'm going to blend into the top. Now I'm going to do what I call lever play, so that way I can maintain the same guard and I can minimize my time as far as eliminating switching between guards. A lot of times, a lot of people have a tendency of switching guards, thinking that they may need a 1, a 2, a 3. In reality, when you use adjustable clippers, you can go from an open, which is a 1.5, down to a 1/16, and utilize that as well as the angles and the, the degree of elevation in order to create that space for you to blend. So I'm moving between the lever to create a lower amount of space, so that way I can take it a little bit tighter around the line of demarcation. Still maintaining a 90 degree with a 45 out. But as you can see, the line starts softening. That means in my head that I'm starting to blend it. I'm going to use a free hand motion, working along that line of demarcation. In order to establish that nice blended line. Now I'm going to remove it. I'm going to go to an open, which is going to be about a 1 to a 1 1/4. I'm going to start at the base, where I took off with my trimmers, and I'm going to work into the section I just blended into. I'm still rocking out at a 45 degree, taking that weight line out. But as you can see, it's starting to disappear. I'm going to use my mirror as a guide because it doesn't lie. Our eyes can trick us as far as shadows, different curvatures of the head, muscle structures, bone structures, allows different shadowing, dark areas, and we want to use the mirror to actually, so we can utilize that to see what shapes we're creating and how much we still need to take out. Now, as you can see at this point, I went ahead and took out that bottom line. Now it leaves this heavy weight line right below the parietal as we're going to go into segment 3. We're going to see how much we actually want to blend. We're going to leave it a little bit of a heaviness right here because we established during the consultation he doesn't want much off the top. We are going to do a little bit of a trim to blend, and we're going to add some texture in there just for some movement. So now I'm going to switch to clipper over comb. I'm going to freehand clipper over comb. And that's very important that we balance the clipper over comb to create the shape. We're going to work along that heavy ridge line right below the parietal. We're going to maintain the same shape as we drop down right above the occipital. We're going to utilize this so that way we can get a nice even blend. Sometimes with guards, it tends to be a little bit more blunt. I always use an open clipper, lever open, and over comb that creates a nice soft blend. So it's easier to soften the look rather than a hard edgy look, or create more lines that you might need to take out later. Again, we're going to use a freehand motion, always working up. And we can tell as we go, we're going to elevate, and we're always going to work 45 out as well, same 90-degree angle in order to maintain that particular shape that we're trying to create so it's nice and soft and sort of rounded towards the top. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to check in the mirror. I'm going to check my blend. I'm going to check the evenness, the balance, the shadow, see if there's anything else I need to work out. So far, I like the shape that it's coming to. I like the look. It looks nice and blended. Very soft fade, subtle into it, not very hard. We're going to go ahead and work from front to center back on the other side now, doing the same steps. So normally at this point, I've established my perimeter. I've established that nice soft blend. I usually field questions. I usually get a little bit more interactive, a lot of FPs. I'll just ask them questions, get them a little bit more involved. A lot of times, sometimes I'll even have them come over and do a couple sections, just so that way they can get the feel of it, almost play like a little matching game. Like I'll do one section, they do the next section. So that way we can get a little bit hands-on. I like to be a little bit more interactive. I usually like to joke and have fun and bring a lot of involvement into it. So right now it's just a little different for me because it's just me and Shay here. So we're just going to do an awesome haircut for you. Alright, so now I'm going to go back to clipper over comb. Same thing on the other side. I'm going to keep it open. So it's about a 1 1/4 over comb. Gives it nice soft blending lines. Now one thing that I didn't touch upon on the other side that I'm going to go ahead and do while I'm over here is that as I go through, I'm always constantly elevating. I'm elevating the comb up and down. So as I go through and I take one small section at the bottom and I work my way up at that 90-degree, 45 out, I like to float a lot. But the most important part about it is that I'm actually creating layers with my comb and my clipper. Same thing as scissor over comb, I'm creating each layer for it to drop into the next. That's what gives it that nice soft blending line. Okay, now we're going to go on to a little bit of scissor over comb. This is also going to establish a little bit more softer line into the sides. But before that, we're going to go ahead and establish how much length that we want off the top. We've already discussed that we're not going to take a lot of length off the top. What we're going to do is just lightly trim and more and blend into the sides, and then we're going to add some texture for some movement. I'll lightly mist. As you can see, he has a lot of texture in his hair anyways. It's a curly wavy. It's got a nice thick feel to it. It's very workable, but there's a lot of movement, so it should be easy and a nice little style after finishing and detailing. So after I sprayed him down, I'm going to work the water through the hair. I'm going to comb it out. Make sure that there's no snags. I'm also going to look at what exactly I need to take off and how much I need to take off, and I'm also going to observe any sort of whorls, calyx, any sort of natural head-shaped contours, everything like that. It all plays a huge factor in as far as blending the haircut and how much weight we need to take out, how much weight we need to leave and establish. So after going through, I noticed that he does have a little bit of whirl in the back, so I'm going to be very cautious when I come to blending in there, because I would hate for it to stick out or push long. So right now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to separate the fringe. He does like his fringe a little bit longer, so I'm going to separate that, and then I'm going to work in a T section. I'm going to establish my guide in the front, work center mohawk back, and then I'm going to work side to side because I want a nice squared look, and then we're going to go add in some texture. Establish my guide in the front. Now I'm going to wet it just a little bit more because he does have a lot of hair, so he can have a tendency of drying out a little bit quicker. I'm going to separate clean sections, establish a guide through the mohawk's center section. Now that I've established that guide, I can work side to side in order to create that squared look. now I'm going to cross check not only diagonally, but center back. It's very important that we do this so that way we don't notice any sort of weight lines, any peaks and valleys, any divots in the flow of the hair. That can interrupt some of the texture, some of the flow that's already naturally there. And it could create, if they have straight hair, it could create just kind of a different illusion of maybe an unbalance. Back, I'm gonna wet the hair again. Now I'm going to work with the fringe. So in order to maintain, I'm going to over direct and just barely take a little bit off. So that way I can keep that longer length in the front. A lot of play, a lot of movement. So now I'm going to concentrate on blending around the parietal section. I'm going to create a horseshoe. I'm going to come and I'm going to start in the front, working center back from side to side. All right. So now that I've established that, I'm going to go ahead and use scissor over comb, working up, and I'm angling out to maintain that shape again. This is really good for softening, cleaning up a little bit of that extra ends, a lot of blend work. It's kind of a freehand style. So, you know, I like to base and anchor the blade on the comb, and as I work and elevate, again creating layers for each one to drop into the next, gives it a nice blend. All right, lastly, I'm going to utilize my texturizing shears. This just kind of gives it that little fine-tuned look. Obviously, I'm working soft. It seems to be the main the main concentration on the words here. In order to create that nice blended, super subtle transition instead of a hard line. Sometimes you need to remove a little bit of bulk in order to create a little less shadow. That helps you blend in quite a bit. My more concentrated areas is the first guideline, the line of demarcation. It's right between this area. Below the parietal, we needed that to blend. We got that to blend, but maybe I want a little bit of a stretch, a little bit more blend in this area in order to create more of a subtle transition. All right, so detailing and outlining, the most important. I cannot stress it. You could do a very nice haircut. It could be the best haircut in the world, but if you miss those minute details, if you miss around the temple, if you miss over the ear, or those nice clean lines along the neck, man, that can make or break your haircut. I've seen it time and time again that usually there's a few tricky spots that a lot of people end up missing. I always stress it because, you know, all your best work is in the details, and you can be very proficient with your clipper work, your shear work, but again, I can't stress it enough. It really comes down to the details. Men, because the hair is so short as it is, everything stands out. Every little hair that stands out, every little shape, contour, shadowing, anything will stand out. So it's very important to be on point with that. It's very important to maintain that level of detail orientation. So with that, this is where I go through and I kind of check this haircut's a little different because of the fact that we've already taken off most of the hair around the hairline, the lower part of the hairline, so we know that the hair isn't going to be there. So now I'm going to look around this area from the temple. We want to have a main line of focus into the eye, and we're also going to make sure that we clean up all the neck hair. Now, since Shay does wear a beard, it's going to be very important to blend so that there's not a heavy weight line. I'm going to go ahead and establish that. Alright, so now I'm going to clean them off a little bit, and we're going to talk a little bit about the style. Alright, so when it comes to styling, I like to have a lot of play, a lot of movement, but I also have to have some hold. I use a lot of products like Mitch Reformer, Clean Cut. I use Super Clean, and to kind of reactivate everything, I use a little bit of outputting moisture mist. So I can just get a little bit of pliability here. I'm just going to use just a little bit of the Reformer. It gives us that nice, stronger hold that we like, but yet some flexibility. I'm going to work it around in my palm. And I like to move from the crown forward, working the product through the hair and coming back. Play it in and make sure that I play with the texture that he already has. If I need a little bit more, I'm going to take just a little bit more. Play with it a little bit with the comb, get that nice texture, that movement that he's looking for. And then I'll finish them off with a little bit of super clean. And that's it. It's a medium bald fade with light texture and just a little bit of trim on top. Now this will vary from client to client. You can take a shorter hair length on top and utilize the same techniques, blending to the round of the head. You can do a high and tight where it's a little bit more flat, a little square on top. That'll work for a lot of your military men. There's different styles and different wears depending on lifestyle, career choices, and everything like that. But this gives you a kind of a simple guide on how to go ahead and establish that look. So thank you for joining us. All right, guys. Now we're gonna go into my favorite part of the guest experience is the extraordinary shampoo. I love this. I know your client will love this. So let's go ahead and get started. First thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure that our guest is properly draped. I went ahead and made sure that they had a wet cape on and a towel, so that way they can give that added protection, so that way the water doesn't get down the neck. Alright, number 2, I'm going to go ahead and test the water on my skin. Let's go ahead and turn the nozzle on. I'm going to check it on my wrist. This way I can make sure that it's not too hot, not too cold. Your comfort is the number one thing for your client. Number 3, keep your fingers curled around the nozzle. So, super important, as you're going through and washing the client's hair, sometimes the temperature may change at the bowl. So keeping your fingers over the top will give you a better idea what the temperature is at all times. Number 4, now when I come across the head and I'm going to start with the saturation of the water of the hairline, I'm going to keep my free hand cupped, and as I'm wetting the hair, I'm moving it across the face, then back down the other side. That way we can keep the water off the face, out of the ears, and out of the nape. Alright, so at this point we went ahead and we got the client nice and saturated, right? We're going to go ahead and turn off the water and put the nozzle back down. I'm going to go ahead and get the right amount of shampoo that I need, and I'm going to slowly just work it gently through the hair, getting it nice and lathered up, right? This leads into my favorite part. At this point, we're going to go ahead and massage the head. I love head massages. I know that's because I don't have much hair, and so it feels really good on the scalp. So I'm going to start in the front with the pads of my thumbs, and I'm going to work in a U shape or a rainbow, so to speak, over the ears from the front hairline down to the ears. And then I'm going to move an inch back. I'm going to work at the apex, and I'm going to repeat this motion 3 times throughout, moving an inch back each time. I get to the apex, same thing, over and all the way down past the mastoid process. Finally, I'm going to go ahead and lift up the client's hair gently, and I'm going to work the bottom half into the nape below the occipital on either side. Alright, so now at this point, after I've repeated these steps 3 times throughout each section, I just want to make sure that you guys understand that the reason why we do this 3 times for each section, it creates that repetitiveness, and it also gives more time for the relaxation process. We're going to go ahead and rinse the hair using the same cupping motions, just keeping the client completely protected from the water, so that way the face doesn't get wet, the ears. You know, the most important thing that I like to remember is that if you have water in the ears, I mean, it can totally ruin the shampooing experience. Sometimes they'll jerk their head out of the bowl, moving things around, and then it can create more space for the water to flow, and it could possibly get the neckline or any other part of their body wet. So always use the cupping motion over the ears as you rinse the hair. Alright, so we went ahead and rinsed out the hair, right? And now we're going to repeat the same process with our conditioner, working those same movements, inch back at a time, all the way through. We're going to gently lift the head left and right, and make sure that we can get underneath the occipital and the nape area, give them a nice little massage down through the nape. Man, that feels so good. Alright, so now after we condition the hair through the same sections, we're going to go ahead and rinse it off the exact same way. Okay? Again, using the cupping motions over the ear, keeping the fingers curled over the nozzle, checking the temperature, making sure everything's good. So I go from side to side, I'm working back. I'm going to take the nozzle and I'm actually going to work gently after lifting their head from side to side, left to right, underneath the nape, and down through the occipital section, meeting up and down motions. So after I made sure that the client is properly rinsed out, all the conditioners out of the hair, what I like to do is just make sure that the rest of the excess water is out of their hair by towel drying our male clientele. They typically don't use a turban, some do, some don't, whatever feels comfortable to them, but we can make this process a little bit more simple and just towel dry the excess off their hair. Then we're going to gently lift them up from the bowl, making sure that the nape and every other section in here is wiped down thoroughly and there's no excess water running into the back of their clothes. And at this point, we can go ahead and get them up and escort them back to the station where we can do their finish and style and go ahead and talk about product and how they like to style their hair and complete the service. Alright guys, let's go ahead and take a moment to reflect. Take this time to go ahead and write down your biggest aha moments for today. Also, any adjustments that you can make to better your skills. Perfect. All right, let's go ahead and share that with our partners next to us, or maybe somebody else that you haven't been able to talk to in class. Great. Now let's recap. All right, who can tell me the 4-step program? Anybody?
Me.
Crystal, go ahead.
Mini powwow.
Mini powwow.
Service consultation.
Service consultation.
Service check.
Service check.
Service completion.
And service completion. Awesome. All right, what are the 3 contours for men's cutting? That's right, building, leaning, and natural. And finally, what's the plan? Anybody?
First, you want to evaluate.
First, you want to evaluate.
Second, create sections.
Create segments.
And third, determine contour.
Awesome, determine contour. And lastly, determine your tools. Great. So you guys remember in the beginning when I had you take out your phones and we looked up all those new trending haircuts and your favorite haircuts? I want you guys to go ahead and make the commitment now to add those to your lookbook, so that way in the future you have a better guide and you also have something for your clients to look at if maybe they're a little bit undetermined on what they want, right? Also, for your home plate tonight, I'm going to go ahead and have you guys diagram the haircut that we did today. You may want to add a little length on top, take a little length on top, just kind of customize it. That's going to be due on Tuesday. Now, just because you guys were so awesome and you hung out with me today, I'm going to go ahead and Monday I'm going to bring in everybody some malasadas.
Ooh, buddy.
All right. Thank you so much for being with me today in class. I loved it. I enjoyed it. Mahalo.